Hello and welcome to Hidden Magic Studio. In this video, I'll show you how to do this self-love spell using neurographic art. I also created a free worksheet to help you with your spell. There's information in the video description on how to get it. Let's get started. To begin your spell, gather your materials. You need a piece of paper, a black pen or marker, and something to color with. I charge all my materials for self-love. Here, I'm just using my own energy to charge all my materials, but you could also use crystals or candles or the moon, anything that works for you. If you're going to use crystals to charge them, I'd recommend something like rose quartz. The next step is to create a tag lock at the center of your paper. For my spell, I'm just using my full name and my date of birth, but you could also use a photograph or a lock of hair as a tag lock. Then I draw a circle around that center tag lock, and then I draw a couple more circles around that, sort of representing the different layers of self, from our most intimate self to our most public self. The next step is to create some intuitive squiggly lines. As you can see, I start at the top and I'm working clockwise, starting at the outside of the paper, working in, because we are bringing all this self-love energy into ourselves. These lines do not need to be perfect by any estimation. Just let yourself kind of intuitively draw them, kind of crisscrossing from the outside of the paper toward the center. In each of these segments, add a statement about something you love about yourself. These are not things that you wish you were like, or hoped you were like, or want to fix about yourself. This is not time for fixing. This is time for loving. This is time for appreciating. Your goal is to fill this paper with statements of love for yourself as you are. Let this take time. You don't have to rush. I personally think that one of the things that make art spells so powerful is that they do take time. The next step is to begin connecting all of these things to one another and back to you at the center of the paper. To do this, grab a marker that is slightly thicker than the one you wrote with, and you're going to round each of the corners by looking where lines intersect one another. And here you'll just make a little swooping shape at each of those corners so that there are no lines that come together at a strong angle. As you do this, pay attention to the words of power you wrote in each segment. Say them out loud to yourself. Connect them to one another. Say them multiple times. Let it become a chant. As you round the corners, remember that your intention is to connect these ideas to one another and back to yourself. Hold that intention as you say these words of power to yourself, as you round out these harder edges. And I'll remind you again, this does take time. Let it take time. Sit with the spell. Feed it all sorts of power as you connect these things to one another. Let yourself get into a meditative state as you work on this art magic. Once you've rounded all those intersections, rounded all those corners, you can begin coloring in your segments. Now, I chose colored pencils, but depending on the paper you use and depending on how you like to do your art and what you have at home, you could use markers, watercolor, acrylic paint, use anything you want. I chose colors that I could use correspondences with. So, for example, I'm filling in here, I have a strong sense of ethics, and I chose a blue colored pencil for this because I think it attaches to truth-telling. Use whatever color correspondences work for you, whatever makes sense to you for your words of power. One thing I love about art magic is that it can be incredibly personal. Just the act of coloring, whether you use a color correspondence or not, is adding energy to the spell. So just like when you were rounding the corners, chant these words to yourself as you color. Let your words of power become a meditation as you color. Here you'll see that I have two segments right next to each other that I think would work great with the same color. You do not need to follow any specific pattern. It doesn't need to match anything other than what feels right for you. When you're done coloring each segment, you have one more step before you have a finished spell. Using one of your thicker markers again, you're going to start at the top, working from the outside in, redrawing all of those original lines you drew that were meant to bring self-love into you. Now, you're not going to go exactly over the line. I made tons of mistakes, but just go back in and fill in any extra spots. Clean up your lines as you draw them. And again, you are bringing this energy into yourself. So as you draw, think about drawing this energy in, connecting all of these things again. If you find any corners that are still a little tight, go ahead and redo those. Use this as an opportunity to strengthen your intention, to bring these words of power into yourself, to strengthen your belief in these words, and to strengthen your love for yourself. After you have finished retracing all of the lines that come from the outside of the paper in, you're going to do one final retracing. The last line to retrace is the circle at the center of the page, that original circle you wrote around your tag lock. I made mine nice and thick because I wanted that center to stand out in the art piece. I want all these aspects of myself to be strongly anchored to my true, authentic self. And that is your finished self-love spell. Now, you don't have to stop there. You could put this spell at your desk. You could put it on your refrigerator. Keep it somewhere where you will see it often. You could make a routine out of standing at that paper and meditating a bit on the love you have for yourself. You could set up an altar for your spell with some self-love crystals and burn a candle. Sit with your spell, meditate on it. You could set up a crystal grid on top of the spell. You could fold up the paper and keep it in your pocket as a pocket altar. You could also just burn the spell, releasing the energy into the world, releasing it into yourself. There are a lot of options for what you could do with this spell, and I want to encourage you to use your intuition to decide what's best for you. I hope this video was helpful and gave you some ideas of how you can use art magic in your own self-love practice. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them for you.